Hey guys, and welcome to Through Ebony's Eyes. I am your host, Ebony Nicole, and I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel, Through Ebony's Eyes, to my podcast, Through Ebony's Eyes. And it's just my thoughts. What do I think? And on certain subjects. And I just want to welcome you. Thank you so much for coming. So, what am I going to be talking about? Man, I tell you, there are so many things that I want to talk about. So I'm just trying to piece things together so we can talk. And I just want to thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And hopefully, you learned something. Give me some of your feedback, respond, follow me, click like and share, all of that jazz. Find my podcast on Spotify, my YouTube page, Through Ebony's Eyes. Thank you so much for following. So we're getting ready to get right into it, y'all. Get right into it. And so on this, I got a couple of segments that I'm gonna go through and talk about some different things. And man, it's a lot going on out there. So I just want to start off. What is the topic of the day? Oh, well, before I get into that, let me tell you a little bit about me. My name is Ebony Nicole. I'm from Tennessee, um, somewhere around the bouts of Nashville, Tennessee. Where the Broadway, everybody's partying and kicking it and hanging out party buses and all of that jazz. I live close to that area. I'm a mother of three. Which are 29, 22, and 17. Baby, when I say I'm so excited because the last one is getting ready to graduate high school. It's a great thing. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of my kids. My oldest is she works for the state of Tennessee, but she also does insurance and all these kind of things. And then my oldest son, the 22-year-old, just graduated as a diesel mechanic, and the youngest is going to go into videography and production. So I'm very proud of these little people that God allowed me to have. Single mom, raised them by myself. I'm very proud of that, and I'm just thankful. So let's get into it. What are we gonna? I told you we're gonna be talking about all kind of stuff, and so I have a topic of the day. I have a spotlight on business. I have a news flash. I have some historical facts and some fun subjects and things like that that I want to talk about. So my topic of the day is I heard that President Trump was wanting to change the age of consent to 14. Okay, that I'm with you when you're right, and when you're wrong, I'm against you. Okay. Um so with Trump, he's not trying to change the age of consent. That is fake news. That is not what he's trying to do. And what is the age of consent? That basically is how old do you have to be to consent to things in regards to sexual activity um legally. And so that is in most states 16 to 18. That is not what he's trying to do. But what he is trying to do is in um some states, um children who are 14 and up, like 14 to 16, 17, when they commit a crime, they're not really charged as an adult. And he wants to change that. And as I was doing my research, I found out that there was something along the lines of a 19-year-old Doge staffer, and I said that wrong, please forgive me, was assaulted by a group of teenagers. And Trump feels that those teenagers are going to get off because um the legislation is against that. And so what I was finding is that in some of those states, and I'm going to look it up because I want to read a little bit about that, because I was like, what is happening? Um, and I looked this up. So I got a credible source. I got CNN. And so I just wanted to talk about it. And what they were saying is that they were saying that local youth within like the ages of 14, 15, and 16 are committing these crimes, and they're doing some violent things. And technically, if you're under 16, they're not really charging them as an adult, and that's what he wants to do. So there are ways that someone under the age of 16, can be tried as an adult, but it has to be for very specific violent crimes like murder, sexual assault, armed robbery, um, and assault with conspiracy to commit three other offenses. So it has to be some very heinous, very um, violent crimes in order for someone under the age of 16 to be tried. Because we all know that we've seen people tried as an adult. And we're thinking, God, Lee, they're only 14 or 15 years old, but they murdered and raped somebody. So yeah, that would be an instance where they would consider that. Um, and so some of the laws that they're trying to say is that some of these offenders are not being tried for violent crimes, but they have to be very specific if they bring this to the judges, and that they have to basically say this child can't be rehabbed, it cannot be fixed, and all of that. So I know when we heard age of consent, everybody went wild and started talking about that. But that is not what he's talking about, because I know they were trying to say, oh, he wants to decrease the age of consent so his friends can get off. And he probably wants to help his friends get off, but it is not the age of consent that he is trying to bring down, but it is being able to legally try these younger offenders as adults for some crimes, but they have they they have to not be rehabable. So that's basically throwing it, saying, hey, they're no good, we're gonna throw the book at them and throw them away in prison for the rest of their life, and that's just it. So that is my topic of the day. So I encourage people, please get out here and read. And there's some other factors in here that they're talking about on that, but I'm not going to get into all of the things that is there any PIRO? PIRO is targeting three different laws, but I'm really not going to get into all of that today. Maybe another day we'll be able to sit down and talk about that. Okay. So I want to go ahead and go on to my next subject, which is spotlight on business. Spotlight on business. And in this segment, I really want to, I really want to talk about some small businesses in my local area. Like I said, I'm in Tennessee, outside of the Nashville area. So, do you need to file your taxes? Do you need a notary? Do you need some life insurance? Like, we got to stop with all of the GoFundMe's and all of that kind of stuff and get some life insurance on our people. No, having life insurance does not mean I'm ready to check out. It does not mean that. It just means preparation for after you're gone. Will your family be able to take care of your end of life expenses and all of that? And close out your books and pay the bills and all of that kind of stuff. That's what the life insurance is for. So if you need your taxes done, and you can get them done at KPA Financials. KPA Financials. So online, that's www.kpafinancials with an S.com. And you can give them a call at 931-516-3226. You can get your taxes or life insurance appointments virtually, or you can call and set up something in person. Now, if you need a notary, you're going to need that signature. That has to be in person, okay? But that is KPA Financial, serving the Nashville and local areas. All right, y'all. This is great. KPA Financials. Shout out to you, KPA Financials. All right, y'all. Does the government owe you money? This is the new segment, News Flash. Does the government owe you money? I have went out there and I found that there was something that I had um paid over, oh my god, maybe 15, 20 years ago, and they could never reach me. And I remember because my daughter reached out to me and said, Mama, there's a website out here that says that somebody owes you some money. And I was like, girl, who owed me some money? I got my taxes and all of that. But this place, I had paid over on something, whether it was taxes or something, and they sent me a check, but I didn't cash it. I didn't even open an envelope. And so they put it out here on this website for you to go out there and find out if you got money. And it's true, it's a real thing. You're going to need your social security number and an ID, I think, all of that. But go out online to treasury.tn.gov. And if you live in other states, check into your other states and figure out where those are. But you may be able to also go to USA.gov. And you're just going to go to the link unclaimed money. It's a real thing because I got some money out there. I got to send my paperwork in. And you can do the paperwork online. You don't have to go to an office or anything like that. Go online and fill that paperwork out and get them dollars. No, it ain't reparations, but it's some other dollars out there. Okay? So hold on, everybody. We'll be right back. Everybody, welcome back. Welcome back to Through Ebony's Eyes. I am your host, Ebony Nicole. So, right now, we're going to talk about an historical fact, something that I didn't even know existed, and I'm sure you didn't know. So, like I said, I live in the Tennessee, Nashville area. So, did you know that there was a place called Black Bottom in Nashville? Yeah, I didn't either. So I heard of Shelby Bottoms and some other places, but I didn't know there was a Black Bottom. So one day I met this gentleman, and when I'm not podcasting and all of that, I Uber and Lyft, right? And so I had met this gentleman. He had to be like 87, 88, or something like that. And he was telling me that in the lower Broadway area, which is where everybody's partying and hanging out and doing their thing and all of that, down there in Nashville, that used to be black owned. And I was like, what? I didn't know that. And so he was like, yeah, my mom owned like a dry cleaning service down there. He said it used to be a lot of dry cleaning services down there with some bars and some clubs and things like that. And so I got to researching because I had never heard of that. Nobody had ever told me that. Like I grew up in this area and I didn't know. So it's called Black Bottom. It is not because the people who live there have black bottoms. It is not that. It is not that reason. So take that out your mind. That is not the reason. But the reason is it's called and where it's at is the lower Broadway area, kind of around that Cumberland area. So like the first, second, third avenues, all of that kind of stuff. That was the area that was called Black Bottoms. This was created in 1832. So the people who lived there were European immigrants and freed blacks lived there. And so they were very small houses, and the European immigrants were impoverished. They were a little bit on the impoverished side that lived there. They had houses and all of that. They had businesses and all of that kind of jazz. Um, and that was the area they lived in. Now, the crazy thing was that in there, like I said, there was businesses, black owned businesses, um, um, European businesses, European immigrants lived there, and so it was filling up to capacity. Um, so during that time, there was a race war because, or race riot, riot, not riot, race riot because the freed blacks and oh god, y'all, I'm sorry, I had some biscuits on my lip. That's crazy. The freed blacks and the European immigrants were competing for the same jobs. This caused a riot. I don't know the specifics behind the riot and what happened, but that was in 1856. But in that timing, and so the area was called Black Bottoms because there was a lot of flooding, right? Because it's right there by the river. There was a lot of flooding, a lot of mud, dirt, and slinging. It was very kind of, kind of dirty over there because it was the lower, it's right off the riverbank. So I can imagine that, there was a lot of commerce coming in and all of that right there on the riverbank. So that's why it was called Black Bottom. Okay. A lot of flooding there, inadequate infrastructure. And I would say infrastructure would be roads and things like that. Also, there was a lot of negative impact because they're trying to say it was crime because it was an impoverished area. So it got a lot of bad publicity being in that area. Okay. And Oh, also in that area, if you know about it, there's like a Meharry Medical School that is still vibrant today. St. Paul AME Church was created there. Um, Pearl School was created there. It's kind of still in that. I think it's called Pearl Cone now, something like that. That's in that area. So there was a lot of building going on in that time, and there was a lot of things. And I also did meet um, the architects that first black architects. I met the mother that she was like in her late 90s. Um, she was an architect during that time, so I'm pretty sure her firm her and her husband's firm was a part of building a lot of the schools and things that were created back in that time frame because they were here during that time. And I'm going to definitely do a segment on them and talk about their life. And I know they were on a local radio, her daughters were on the local radio station today talking about the family history. And I think they're on the sixth generation of McKinsey's that are doing that now. But in 1862, during the Civil War, fugitive slaves started coming into this same area. They're kind of a part of the downfall of Black Bottoms. Supposedly, during that time, they brought in some brothels. And I don't know why they had brothels. Why was the fugitive slaves bringing in brothels and saloons? That's strange to me, but that's what's reported and recorded and all of that kind of stuff out there when you do the history of Black Bottoms. But um, when that area came, it was not only impoverished, now it's beginning to be deplorable because like a lack of infrastructure, so they didn't have really good buildings and all of that. It looked very poor during that time frame, right? Okay, so that began to be the downfall. And after World War II, low income housing was created, and a lot of the blacks in the community moved to the lower income housing. After World War II, the impoverished immigrants stayed in that area, and I believe that's when it started transitioning into being called Germantown, which it still has that name today. After the 1960s, Black Bottoms no longer existed. So that was a pretty cool read. I'm gonna go find one of the persons that I found that created that article. Let me um, let me get um, give credit where credit is due because that was um, encyclopedia search of it. Also, it was an article written by a student, the Historical Society, um, blackpast.org, and the author that wrote that article was Samuel Mamadou, okay, native of Nashville, Tennessee, that wrote that article. So, my last segment is a word of encouragement, okay? And so, I have this beautiful book that was written by several women in the community, and I wanted to read. It's called Voices of My Sisters, an anthology, and it has a list of the authors that created this. So the one I want to read is Where Does Your Loyalty Lie by Dr. Celestine McNeil. Where does your loyalty lie? Is it something you cherish? If it is not in your best interest, do you betray or stay? Where does your loyalty lie? Do you treasure it with all of your heart or let it go when it feels as though it would not allow you to grow? Where does your loyalty lie? Does it imply, inspire, encourage, or be explicitly uninspiring and discouraging? Where does your loyalty lie? If you have to question yourself, you already know the loyalty you thought was there. Well, the answer was you never cared. Learn how to show your loyalty. Always wear your loyalty. Allow it to stand out. And it will be what others not only believe, but noticed in you first, foremost, and always. Where does your loyalty lie? So I want to thank you so much for tuning in to through Ebony's Eyes today on podcasts or YouTube, wherever you may be listening. And I'm going to link it to my TikTok page, Ebony Nicole Parsons, Instagram, and Facebook. Those are all Ebony Nicole Parsons. And I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. It's been great talking to you. I'm so excited for publishing this first article under this name and page. And thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning in. Have a great